Hey, how's it going, everyone? Carlo here from All You Can Board, and as always, I'm here with my cousin Dylan. And today we are starting a new series, which we are, as of now, tentatively calling Retro Reviews. So this is kind of retrospective reviews, basically taking old, beloved games, whether they're games that we love or the general public loved at some point, and looking at it through the lens of how does it hold up today. So this is kind of a follow-up of a series we used to do kind of when we had some written content on our website. And basically we're going to be looking at each of these games. We're going to be talking about 3 games today. We're each going to review one kind of independently, and then together we're going to co-review a kind of a bigger, more complex game at the end. So we'll always have 3 of these, and for each of the games we're going to give you our verdict on is the game showing its age, has it aged well, or is it a classic? So again, you're never really going to see generally bad games on here, because we don't want to just pick a game that's bad and say, yeah, it still sucks. The whole point is to see, how does this good game still hold up, or does this game that used to be amazing still hold up today? We're going to talk about some of the comparables in the industry and stuff like that. So yeah, I think this is a fun one, and we're curious. If you like this, let us know in the comments below afterwards if there's other games you want to see us cover in future episodes. I guess the last thing is just generally we're going to try and keep the games, we want to lean towards the older ones. We're going to aim as much as possible to go 10 plus years, but sometimes we're going to go in that 5, 7, 8 year kind of range. So
the only thing I'll add is that we're calling this retro reviews right now, but we honestly both racked our brains being like, is there something better we can call it? We don't know if that completely fits. So we were kind of just going to throw it to you guys as well. If you think that there's, you have an awesome name or a better way to kind of get across what we're saying in a single word or 2 words or something really succinct like that, then compared to retro reviews or retrospectives or whatever, let us know in the comments. And if we like what you've thrown out there and we end up using it, we'll credit you and we'll use that going forward.
Yeah, good point. Mm-hmm. All right, so I think I'm actually going to throw it over to you, Dylan, to tell us about this first game here.
Yeah, this is the first board game I ever bought myself, I think, unless we're talking back in the day when I bought actually, I guess my parents bought me those games. So I think this is
I think it is. One. I think the first time that you invited me over to play a board game was this.
Yeah, and it's one that I think most people will know, and has been, unfortunately, in the last couple of years, it now has an unfortunate name. But this is Pandemic.
This is the original box.
This is the original box.
You can't find this anywhere anymore.
I've had this for a long time. Like I said, it's one of the first games I played. This is a cooperative board game. I think it's 3 to 5, 2 to 4, 2 to 4. And I think you can technically play it solo too, because you can control whatever rules.
And this came out in 2008, I believe. So
yes.
This is 15 years now, or almost 15.
15 years old now.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a 15th anniversary.
Oh, absolutely, and a 20th.
So Pandemic is a cooperative game where you're essentially trying to control the spread of a pandemic disease, which, like I said, is an unfortunate theme nowadays for a game. I don't think this game would get made today after what we've been through, but yeah, you're basically have different roles. Every role's gonna have a different ability, and you're moving around a world map, and you're managing 4 different colors of diseases, and you're trying to eradicate them. And eradicating all 4 is how you win the game, but you're constantly pulling from this infection deck, and that's going to cause more of these disease cubes of the 4 colors to spread, and you have to kind of use each other's abilities and work together to establish research stations, to make effective travel, to get rid of these diseases, and to gather, I think it's 5 cards of a single color in your hand to be able
to find the cure. You don't have to eradicate. Eradicating helps you more, but it's just finding the cure.
Yes, finding the cure. So yeah, it's honestly, I don't know if it's the first cooperative game like this of its kind, but if it's not the first, it's definitely the one that became most mainstream and was most effective at communicating that idea.
Yeah, I think the other big popular ones around the time were Forbidden Island and Forbidden Desert, but right. I think those were a bit newer.
Yeah,
and this was way more popular.
I was going to say more popular, and I think it was even a little bit more involved too than with what's going on and how much you're having to really use each other's abilities and work together. Yeah. So it had actually been a while since I played the base Pandemic. Because I should mention, there's many versions of Pandemic now, even legacy versions and completely different re-themes and with new mechanics, everything.
Expansions.
Yeah, it's a wide-reaching game now. It's its own brand essentially. So I hadn't played base Pandemic, and I don't even know how long, a very long time. Even though when I first got it, I played a ton of this game, and we are in a game right now on Board Game Arena. It's the first time I played it in a while, and it's reminding me about the positives about it, the negatives, and everything. And it's been really, really good to go through it. It's a game I still really, really enjoy. I think that playing it this time on BGA reminded me just how much it did for cooperative games, because I see elements in it that even in newer games we played the Loop and stuff, I'm this owes a lot to Pandemic. This wouldn't have been this successful of a game, or wouldn't have maybe incorporated these mechanics in this way if not for a game like Pandemic existing and everything. Right. So appreciate it a lot, and yet I might surprise some people by saying that I'm giving it the grade of showing its age. And the reason I'm giving it that is not because I still don't enjoy it, because I'm really enjoying our session on BGA, but over the course of 15 years and many people trying to emulate success and all the different versions of Pandemic, it's just not... It's showing its age in the sense that there's just so many better options out there. And I shouldn't even use the word better. I should just say, in my opinion, more fun. More engaging, more interesting, whatever. Like, I would play the Legacy version, even Season 1 again, over playing base Pandemic. I still haven't played Pandemic Iberia, and I really, really want to play that version.
I love, and I think is by far the superior version.
Yeah, like there's expansions you can put on this, but there's like also like there's the there's a Cthulhu version.
Yeah,
of
there's
Pandemic.
The other one I've heard a lot of good things about is I think Fall of Rome.
Oh right,
I
of
think
course.
that's the
I
one.
forgot about that one.
Heard really good things, and then there's the two, or there's at least one Warcraft themed one. There's that Wrath of the Lich King that got really good reviews too. People said it's a much more interesting, immersive version than base Pandemic. So
and then
just a system that keeps being adapted, right?
Yeah, and then even like having played the Loop recently, you know, it's that's not a re-theme by any means, but like we said, it owes a lot to Pandemic. That's the very same style of game of managing stuff coming out of control with everyone having unique abilities, like very much the same essence.
But the Loop has the cards that are interesting.
Yes.
You get different cards every time and stuff.
Exactly. So like,
and it's simple to play.
Even new games that are coming out now are saying like, we can take this system that we owe obviously to Pandemic and it doing it so well and just make it better. So it's hard for me to give it any other grade when I was thinking about it, just because truly it is an example of it just showing its age. If someone had not played Pandemic but had played Pandemic Iberia, Fall of Rome, the Cthulhu version, the Legacy version, the Loop, and then they're like, I want to go back and play the original, I feel like there's a good chance they're going to be like, this is kind of a letdown.
Yeah, why are you showing me this? Like, we're going backwards here, kind of thing. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I'm coming from there. Like, again, it doesn't diminish the impact it had, doesn't diminish that it's a good game. It's just a case of it is showing its age because it's been 15 years and a lot of people have refined this formula by now. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. This is one that I'm glad you took on, because I was at home thinking about like, man, if I was doing that one, would I be saying it's showing its age or aged well? Because it's that thing where like obviously it has aged well enough that the bones, the system, the idea of Pandemic is enough to spawn all these, you know, other versions and stuff, and people still will play it, and it's still the base version still does sell. But like you said, it's undeniable. Like from all the versions we've tried, if this is near the bottom of all the Pandemic versions, has it really aged well? So I have to agree with you ultimately that's showing its age, even though it is still fun enough to play. Yeah,
it's still a monumental game. Just now it happens to have an unfortunate theme.
Yeah, but it did so much for the hobby.
It did.
And if especially theme-wise, like Spirit Island is just so much more interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's a great, of course. I can't even believe I didn't even mention Spirit Island. That's a great example of like, play Spirit Island, then go back and play Pandemic, and it's going to be hard to say that this is more interesting than Spirit Island. I don't know.
Yeah, thematically and just the whole thing, cards, the way it play, everything. Yeah.
So that's Pandemic. I think that it is showing its age.
That's totally fair, and I agree with you. Okay, the next one we're going to talk about today is a game we've spoken about a fair bit on the channel over the last couple of years, I would say, and that is For Sale.
Ooh, God, impressive.
rock-filled box over here, apparently. So this is a game we've obviously spoken about on the channel before. If you watch us, you've heard us talk about it before. It's a game for 3 to 6 players. It's a little auction bidding game. Oh, I forgot to look up what year this came out in. It's either early 2000s or I think it was like, 2003?
It's older than Pandemic.
Yeah, it's older than Pandemic for sure. Somewhere around 20 years old. Might even be older. Might even be in the 90s. Anyways, designed by Stefan Dora. Very, very simple game. Basically, there's 2 decks of cards. One is a set of properties ranging from value 1 to 30. And the other one is a deck of these like check cards ranging from 0 to 15,000. And the game basically plays over 2 phases. Everyone starts with a certain amount of money, and you're flipping cards from a deck that are properties, and you're basically going around bidding, trying to outbid the other players to stay in the round, or you're passing, getting out of the round, and taking the least valuable property left. And then in the second phase of the game, you're using the properties that you've gained. Everyone's secretly picking one at a time when the checks are available, and then you're basically flipping them over to see whose properties get the most valuable checks. Player with the most money wins. Super simple game. That's pretty much all the rules right there. It plays in like 15-20 minutes. It's great at pretty much every player count you can play it at. We've had so much success teaching this. And this is a game that I only discovered and played for the first time on Board Game Arena during the pandemic. And I think I probably played this 50 or 60 times just against random strangers before I even got to show this to anyone. And I remember I think I showed it to you and a couple of other our friends, and then it kind of became this regular game we played throughout the pandemic. We both went and bought our own copy of this little small travel version. You know what, as I'm praising the game, I'm just going to say right now, this is a classic, without a doubt for me. And it's a classic for a few reasons. One is like the fact that how old it is and the fact that it holds up this well and that you can just show it to anyone and play. You can play it online again in silence or not like with voice chat. You can play it in person around a table. Everyone's always going to have a good time. People are always requesting to play this again. But the thing that really gives it that classic status to me is it feels like today, and I think a lot of this is driven by like Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general, is games a lot of the time have added options and variants and modules and stretch goals and things that are like, oh, then you have variable player powers and there's end game objective cards and you can get these item cards, right? And there's always these, and a lot of times like there's certain games where yes, it all belongs there, but sometimes it feels like too much, and there's something beautiful about the simplicity of this game. There isn't anything else to it. I remember when they recently announced the for sale Autorama version or whatever, which is like the updated version that's like car themed, but it's like a $50 or $60 game. There's all these other
It's a $50 or $60 game,
and it's like a different module, or like it's at least, I think maybe at least 48 or something. I think it was
too much.
I think I saw it was 50. I think it was 55. I saw.
That's
like,
wild.
Beautiful art by Kwanchai Mori and stuff. But when I read about all the rules and stuff, I just thought like, is that what I want from For Sale? Like, I want a simple filler game. I don't want new modules to add in or things that are going to complicate it. Like, I'm open to trying it still. I'm not judging that game without playing it, but there's just something. We've played other auction games, we've played other fillers, and yet, like, this one truly does stand the test of time. I've played it probably over 100 times now, and I don't think this is ever going to leave my collection because of how simple it is. And, again, travel version, like, you bring this camping, bring it on traveling with you, whatever, wherever you go. Awesome game. It just holds up so well.
I think if I, like, I'd have to think about it more, but I'd be pretty close to giving it the classic status too, depending on how like critical I want it to be, because it is just, for how long it's been out, there's not many games that have often cracked that formula of being like short, plain, filler-esque, and yet like nerve-wracking decision making with like a large player count potential as well. Like, it has so many elements that are not always easy to balance and not always easy even just to hone in on one of those and do it well. And it seems to do them all well in this small package that is really simple. And
all you do is bid or pass.
And an easy rules teach. Like,
you have two choices, but the player interaction, like sometimes you're just bidding and someone's like, "How dare you? I can't believe you just outbid me." Like it gets people talking. It's a social involved game, and there aren't many games that give you this much fun. And this much decision space in this amount of time and with this simple of a rule set. So, totally for that reason, this is one of those very few games that's like that much sort of bang for your buck that's that old. So, for me, it's a classic without a doubt.
Love it. All right, now we're going to do a joint game. So this joint game, it's the same game. We're both going to give our verdict on it. We're probably going to start by saying our verdict, because otherwise it's going to probably be too obvious what our verdict is, and we both have to give it. But I'll let you introduce the game, because I think you're going to do a better job introducing it than me.
Well, thank you. He's so kind. He's too kind. It's only because I've played the game more than he has. But so today we are going to be talking about The Voyages of Marco Polo. So this is co-designed by is it Simone Luciani and Daniele Tascini, I believe.
Wow, look at that.
Who also did Zolkin, and did they also do Teotihuacan? At least one of them did. I can't remember if they did as a team, but
did, I think,
they've done lots of games together. And actually, I guess they did The Voyages of Marco Polo 2, which came out a few years later. So the first Voyages of Marco Polo, I forgot, was it 2014, 2016?
Ooh,
15.
I did not like that, but somewhere around there.
But this is one. It's not super old. It's less than 10 years old, but is one that I only discovered for the first time on Board Game Arena a couple of years ago. The basic overview is that the game plays over 5 rounds, and it's a dice placement game. So kind of like worker placement, but with dice. So everyone has a pool of 5 dice, or depending on your character, you might have more or whatnot. And you start the round by rolling your dice, and then throughout the round, there's different spots, kind of like worker placement action spaces on the board that you go to that can give you different resources, allow you to travel around the different parts of the board. Like there's a map of a portion of Asia. You all start in one location. You're trying to move around the map and get to Beijing, where you can get extra points. You can drop trading posts along the way when you're traveling to places, but you need to acquire like money and camels in order to travel. There's all kinds of cool stuff. There's certain spaces that only one person can go to, or once there's a die there, no one else can go. But there's other spaces that you can go on top of other dice, but there's an extra cost that you have to pay based on the value of the die there. So every round is kind of an interesting play of you roll your dice and you try and figure out, what am I going to try to accomplish this round? And also, what do I think my opponents are going to try to accomplish? Because if I know there's places that I really want to go or things I have to do, I want to get them for cheap before other players take those actions. Then I have to pay the extra costs to go there.
Yep.
Might mess with the amount of resources I have to do other things. So there's contracts that you get that you can cash in to get points and other resources and things like that. And you're scoring for all different kinds of things at the end of the game. You're scoring for your contracts and your trading posts you left behind and leftover resources and all kinds of stuff, right? So yeah, there's a lot, and it's a variable setup, so you always have a different map. And here, I'll leave it to you now to tell people about the most interesting part of the game.
Sure, which I'm assuming you're talking about is the all the initial starting character powers that you can get.
The variable player powers, which is just what make this game.
Yeah, so there's a ton of different variable player powers, and they all are not just like minor things that's like, oh cool, you're going to be able to do this game. Like, they very much break or bend or completely twist the rules of the game, in the sense that now I'm going to be able to do something completely different than someone else is going to do, and I'm going to look at that and think, how is this even fair? Like, what I can do is going to be completely broken for everyone else, until I realize that they also have a power that completely breaks something or makes them feel overpowered. So everyone's going to have this interesting unique approach that now next time I play, I'm playing the same game, but with a completely different way to break the game, it's going to feel very different. And I think that's what makes it so much fun to go back to, is I still haven't used, I might have encountered every power, but I haven't used myself every power, which makes it so that I still want to go back and do that more, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And again, going back to the characters with the variable setup gives more life to those characters, because it's not just you try them once or twice and you think, oh, I've seen everything there is. You see different action spaces on the board that you travel to that will give you different potential combos. So every game is a different puzzle of assessing the board and trying to figure out where to take advantage of the strengths of your character and what not to do, kind of thing. Yeah. And not everyone has to move. You can play games where you don't move around as much and you figure out other ways to get resources and cash in contracts and things.
Yeah. So let's say what our verdicts are, and then let's talk about it a little bit. Do you want me to go first?
Doesn't matter.
Of course.
Oh, sure, fine. I'll go first. No, quiet. I think it has aged well.
Okay. I am also going to say aged well, but I was so close to saying classic.
And, me too. And definitely closer to classic than the other way. I
think I talked myself out of it because I was like, maybe I should be a little more critical of a classic or something. But but honestly, like, it was pretty close. And since you said your verdict first, I'm going to give my reasoning first.
Right.
So for me, it's that I still don't know if I can think of another game that incorporates many of these elements, or the majority of these elements that it has in one package, that I like more. And it's only been from playing it more that I've realized that, obviously. But like, I'm a huge fan of dice placement, like and manipulating die faces and using those as workers or values, whatever. Like, we've played a handful of games like that now, and I've always enjoyed them on some level, whether that be Teotihuacan or whether that be Coimbra.
Butoku.
Butoku. Like, I really like that mechanic, and yet I go back and play Voyages Marco Polo, and I realize that here's this game that came out, whatever it is, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and it still does it better than any games that have come after it. Yet they've had the information to pull from, they've had the inspiration to pull from, and it seems difficult for them to find a way to top it. And maybe that's because sometimes you strike gold and you figure out the best way to do something from the start, and everyone's trying to circumvent that. But like, there's something just so satisfying about, you roll your dice, here they are, you have minor ways to manipulate the value. They give you this option to get to cash in and get the extra black die, so you have this way to like get more dice if you need it, but you have to pay for it. And then the simple but super effective thing of, yes, you're the only one who can go to this spot, but you can go if you're willing to pay more. But you're trying to craft this strategy of like, well, if I pay more, then I'm not going to have money to do this, though, and I've planned it out just perfectly. So now, if instead of that, can I do this? And then the order people go to some places, you're like, I know someone here is going to go and travel, but like, if I travel now, it's not going to be as effective of a travel. But if I travel later, I might not travel at all. Like, there's just like so much balancing between all that, and it's all done good. Like, it's done well. Like, that's the surprising thing, is with variable player powers, with dice placement, with traveling across like a map on the board, with collecting contracts, like managing all your resources. There's so much going on, and all of them, I would say, I wouldn't say it does any of them poorly.
No, I think totally agree with you.
All very, very well. So in that sense, like, I almost said classic, because if we're considering classic as something that like still holds up as the epitome of what it does, I would say it's pretty darn close. It's just, Honestly, I don't even know why I didn't push it to classic. I think I was being a little critical. It's close. It's
here's
really
the
close.
thing. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was so close to picking classic as well, and I kept thinking the same thing. Like, is this a game that if I didn't own a copy of ever, I didn't know anyone owned a physical copy, that I would be okay with just playing on Board Game Arena once in a while? And I think that's what made me say, like, yeah, technically, like, I don't need to own this. And again, like, I would be fine to just keep playing it on Board Game Arena, so maybe that's part of what pushed me into there. And the other thing is, we've started, obviously, a game of Voyages of Marco Polo 2, but we haven't completed one yet.
Yeah.
I haven't seen enough of it. I don't know yet. I don't know if you have any first impressions off comparing the two games. Like, obviously, Voyages of Marco Polo 2 has taken away a lot of it's loosened the game up, right? It's given you way more options, way more flexibility. You're not starved for resources. It's not, like, trying to get scraps wherever you can. It's like, no, just there's wild resources, like Jade that can help you. There's all kinds of benefits places. It's easier to travel. Yeah. And I don't know, how are you feeling about it so far?
I think that, like, the things you're mentioning right now, as you say it, like, that it's taking away, are some of the things that I think are what makes the original so good. So I think that even then, like, even if I end up liking the second one more, I don't know that it's going to be a situation of, like, it replaces it, because it's very much a sequel. Like, it owes everything to the first one. It's a little bit different, and I'm almost wondering if, for me, the only thing that it needs to push to classic is just a couple more years with no game topping it.
And that's what I was, like, because it's only 7. If it had been out for 20 years, you'd be like, man, this game has really stood the test of time, right?
If another 3 years goes by and no one, in our eyes, obviously this is subjective, some other people might be like, I love this dice placement game way more than it, but for us, if in 3 years we've played, a slew of other dice placement games, a slew of other games that also have variable player powers with it and all this stuff, and none of them can seem to do it better, at some point I think it's going to be like, you know what, I give it classic status because I nothing else is coming close, kind of thing. Or maybe not coming close, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah. You know what? And I think it is those. And just from what I've seen of the player powers in the second game in Marco Polo 2, I think the powers seem a little more broken and a little more. Like, in a good way.
Right.
Like, they're more wild and more interesting, like game breaking, where you're just like, what? Like, this character can literally just choose the die values and just be like, yeah, all my dice are 6, and you're like, but 6s are usually the best. That's cheating. And then another character, it's like, now you have 2 characters on the map and you can move to different locations. Like, what? And it doesn't feel quite that shocking in Marco Polo 2. So I think that's where it's also feeling like it's really maintaining its status as just a really solid game. And the fact that on your turn, not only are you picking actually with your dice, but you can spend 3 camels to buy these extra black dice to add more dice to your pool, or you can take certain free actions. So there's even little things on your turn that aren't just pick a spot and go to it. There's more to it than that too. So
and even just like you said, like, which contracts you have, like, you're going to prioritize travel more or less depending on how achievable they are, but also on, like, compare, like, which player power you get. Like, if you get one that really affects your travel, suddenly you're like, I'm going to make sure I get to, what's the last spot you want to get to? Beijing. You might, like, in the game we played, I had the ability to travel more efficiently, so I'm like, well, I'm just going to make sure I get to Beijing first and I get my contracts, because I know I can do that efficiently, and that would be, like, not my priority, but something I know I'm going to accomplish this game, which I think in our game, I don't even, was it the one we played where you didn't even, like, complete your contracts? You only completed, or sorry, your travel.
I didn't complete either one.
But you won, right? The thing is, like, it's cool that you can approach it that way.
They give you 2 starting goals. You don't complete either one, and you can still win the game. That is.
Yeah, no, honestly, it's a game that has aged very well. It's almost there you go.
No, I was going to say,
well, it's aged very well.
Yeah, definitely on the very high, like, just about reaching classic status. And who knows, maybe we'll revisit this in a couple of years or 5 years or whatever, and maybe we will say, you know what, we were maybe a little harsh. Maybe it is a classic.
In 3 years, comment on this video and say, where does it stand now? And
now that it's 10 years old or whatever. Yeah.
Mark your calendars.
But very good game, and the BGA implementation is very good. So if you haven't tried it yet, highly recommend you check it out on there. Is there anything else you want to add about the Voyages of Marco Polo?
No, that's it. I think that's it, and that's the 3 games. So just to recap, Pandemic, I said, has not aged well, but showing its age.
Showing its age, which I agree with.
For Sale is a classic, and Voyages of Marco Polo has aged very well.
We agree. Aged well, but very well, close to classic. Yeah, but maybe not quite there.
So those are the 3 we looked at today. Once again, if you like this series, if you like us revisiting older games, let us know in the comments so we know that you enjoy it, you want to keep seeing it. And if you have any inspiration, any ideas for a name outside of retro reviews, which stands for retrospective reviews, that you think encompasses what we're doing a little bit better, let us know in the comments, and if we like it, we will credit you and we will use it as long as you're okay with that, and as long as you're okay with not getting paid for it, because we're not paying for that.
Yeah.
But
No compensation,
but we would
being
love
offered,
we would love your help there. Otherwise, that's all we got. As always, if you're enjoying this content, subscribe to the channel. If you want to talk with us more, join our Discord. If you want to support us, go to Patreon, or just keep watching our videos, and we love that you guys watch our videos. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.